Hi everyone, I'm Sloan from SloanBella.com and I'm back with another channeled video. This one is on the disgraced child molesting billionaire Jeffrey Epstein. Of course, now he supposedly committed suicide. So I wanted to explain a little bit about why I felt like he wasn't even dead, which is really interesting because when I first heard the news, I was on my way up the side of a mountain, as you know, and I got the text probably, it was like 30 minutes after he supposedly was found suicided, which to me is another word for murdered these days because everybody apparently is just committing suicide. Although I will say in his particular instance, I could see where that would be a way out. But then on the other hand, with somebody with such bravado and overtly narcissistic tendencies, I don't imagine they'd kill themselves. They don't usually kill themselves. So either way, I received the message over the text and I was like, let me focus on his energy while I'm running. So I tried to pull in on any strand of thought I could around his passing and I could pick up nothing. It was like just completely a dead zone, no pun intended, but it was completely like nothing I could pick up. So that's not unusual when somebody first crosses over, unless you have personal interaction with the person and they come to you energetically. This was not the case with him. So I was trying to figure out what was going on, why this was in this way, why I couldn't connect with him. And I started to meditate on it over the next week. And the information I was receiving was around the situation, not from him. So let's just go into this in a little bit of an abstract way because at times it's difficult to explain in lay terms to people. And I don't know that I understand myself, so I may have to take this very slowly in order to explain it from what I understand. I don't really understand it. So from what I was getting, Jeffrey Epstein's energy when he was a young person born into his family and came onto the planet basically from childhood, almost thereafter around age 10 through 16, this kid was very highly focused on money is what they were showing me. Very focused on, I am going to get respect, I am going to be seen in a certain way, people are going to want me. It's almost like a bruised ego, like you're the kid in high school that gets bullied, so you want to get all the chicks and all the cars, and so you want all the money or be a football player, or, you know, why little kids want football jackets, letters, you know, cheerleaders, they want to be popular, all right? Not realizing that in the scheme of an entire lifetime, popularity comes in different ways, usually through you finding what you love to do and embracing people in your life. I think this was lost to him at this point. But either way, when he was very young, they were showing me that he was extremely, he had a huge inferiority complex, huge, okay? So it stems from the beginning of that. Now let's take this in a different direction. A lot of you out there understand that you go to church when you're little, whatever your church is, Catholicism, Judaism, Buddhism, anything, whatever it is, just straight up Christianity, Southern Christianity, whatever, you go to church. Well, the same thing is true of the darker arts and the way that people pray the opposite way, if you will. So let's say you're a person with a huge inferiority complex and you feel unsuccessful, even though you're not really grown yet, but somehow you just come from this abusive childhood where people tell you things like this and you believe that. So let's say energy-wise, something comes into your consciousness where you understand that you can actually be the way you want to be. So you can be that kind of person. Hi everyone, I'm Sloan from SloanBella.com and I'm back with another infamous channeled video. This one is on the recently suicided, and I use that term lightly, Jeffrey Epstein, the billionaire bad boy turned pedophile, coming up on charges, and suddenly he kills himself in jail, in a maximum security jail. So when I got the information about that, I started to focus in on his energy. So I wanted to figure out if he was actually dead, because quite frankly, something was so off when I heard it. I expected it. I did expect it, but something was very, very off. So I started to focus on it and I started to ask, you know, what happened to him? What was the situation about? And I couldn't pull in any energy. So I was trying and I couldn't. I wanted to understand why that is. Now, sometimes when people cross over, you're not going to pull their energy in right away because there is a transition period. So people will tend to cross out of their bodies and they have certain things they want to do, not necessarily can you feel it, but there are times when you can actually feel it when they've crossed over, although it's not communication. You just know that they've crossed over. I did not get that sensation with Jeffrey Epstein. So I wanted to understand what was going on. And what I was told immediately right off the bat is that I was not dealing with a regular human being. And that sounds really odd. Let me word it in a little bit of a different way. I was dealing with somebody who had allowed their human nature, their birth-born nature, to be removed and some other energy come into their physical body. So we have a soul body, we have a physical body. And in Jeffrey's case, between about the age of 10 and 16, so pre-puberty to after puberty, this kid had such an inferiority complex that he wanted to be seen as a big shot. He wanted to have the most money, the most girls, the most everything, but he was extremely insecure, extremely inferior. He felt inferior in pretty much every situation, but his outside personality was basically that of a showman, okay? So I would say a highly, highly overtly narcissistic temperament with him. He could talk to you in a way that allowed you to believe that he did and had the things that he didn't have. Well, he actually did have them, but may or may not have had them at the time. And I feel that when he was very young, before the age of 20, that he basically started to pray in a way that would help him conjure up what he wanted in his life. What he wanted most was power and respect. I want to be seen and I want respect. Now, I was asking my guides why I couldn't connect with him. Not that I really wanted to connect with him, and I got a huge warning with his energy. I was basically given the impression that I was to stop asking to do that, that they weren't going to let me do that. It wasn't going to happen that way, because if I got into that energy field, I was going to get extremely sick. They talked about him being part of the fallen group that came from, on the spiritual side, those that fall in darkness, if you will. I don't know. That's just what I was getting. They fall in darkness. So he, Jeffrey Epstein, was no longer Jeffrey Epstein, the kid that was born that. He was outside of himself in the astral, okay? So he too had been praying in a dark way, and there was a very forceful entity with him, almost like a Pied Piper, but in the most negative and derogatory way. So this was something that had filled up his physical form, his physical body, and was acting as though he was Jeffrey Epstein. But I assure you, at the end of Jeffrey's life, Jeffrey wasn't there. And I straight up asked my guides, through meditation, whatever I was hearing, where the hell did he go? Because I can't feel him. And basically what I was told is that although the physical body shut down and was basically discarded, okay, so think of a caterpillar getting out of their caterpillar bodysuit, or a snake shedding its skin. The entity or the energy that consumed Jeffrey Epstein jumped into another vessel. What is a vessel? It is a human body. Because if you've ever been to a funeral where they have an open casket, which I've been to several, not my favorite thing to do, because when I'm looking at the person, I'm like, they're not even here. Now, a lot of times with the people I've gone to, if family members or whomever, they are actually in the room and I can sense them in the room, but they're not in the body. So when I'm staring at the body, it's like staring at a snake skin. I'm like, okay, and so in that sense, Jeffrey Epstein left. The demonic energy jumped into another vessel. Now, the Jeffrey Epstein, the person who was supposed to come in and inhabit and take this life on as a challenge and actually try to respond to it, he was outside of himself from very young on, about the age of 16. What I mean by that is, so there's a physical body here, and there's a person with DNA and a personality and energy and emotive and all of those things. Well, when he decided he wanted this huge thirst for power and to be seen because of his crap-ass childhood and whatever other idiosyncrasies he was born with, which I feel had to do with the way his physicality was. Well, we all have read about, you know, this. Anyway, we've all read about all that, so that probably had a lot to do with it. Not feeling strong enough, not feeling powerful enough, all of those things. But I also get that he was a bit of a gambler, and he liked to play. Now, here's what I'm seeing. Here's what I was told. I was told that when they fall from the dark side, so when they are basically fallen from the God source or the source energy, and they choose to reject it, because remember, we have free will, we can choose. So let's say they think everything that the rest of us think, or the ones that do think like us, you know, being a good person, working hard, doing those things, those bill of goods we've been sold, apparently, according to the world stage, where everybody who's controlling us isn't actually following those rules, but they want us to follow them, which has always been a bone of contention for me, quite frankly, because I could see that they were full of it, and I'm like, but I'm supposed to sit here and I'll get nailed if I don't do this, but you get away with it. So the imbalance is like clear to me. But regardless of that, let's say he chooses not to work hard. Let's say he chooses to work differently. Let's say he chooses to work the street angle to an extreme, okay? Like the street hustler angle to an extreme. That's what he decided to do. So when he made that decision, and he did, he basically is pushed outside of the auric field over here like this. Now, I will give you another example where that happens. When you women, and me women, have been pregnant, and we're in the beginning stages of our pregnancy, and we can feel a little baby in our tummy, and it's super exciting. The baby's soul, the soul that's going to come in and be our child, doesn't actually come into the physical body until about 5 minutes before birth. They are around us in our energy field, but not technically in us. It's really weird. I know that sounds strange, because people are like, no, I can feel my baby kicking. I can feel my baby at 4 months. You know, I got indigestion, the little feet came out. We all associate that with the child, with the soul, but in effect, the soul grounds in during the birth process. So the soul actually inhabits the vessel, the baby in the stomach, okay? So the vessel that's growing in your stomach, the baby, for all intents and purposes, is very much around the mother and the family and everybody when the pregnancy is going on. So there's instances of that. In the case of the very opposite case of those that choose to step away from the source energy, or, you know, the crown chakra energy that aligns us in unison in a very positive and loving way, when they choose to step away from that, they are pushed outside of their body's energy. So it's like they're over here, but they are not in charge of the physicality anymore. And that leaves the door open for someone to step in. Now, I'm going to give you another example, which is not a demonic example or an entity example or an alien example. I'm going to give you the movie Heaven Can Wait with Warren Beatty, if any of you remember that. It's actually the second or third remake of it, and I think that was back in the 70s. But if you remember that movie, there is he gets into an accident and his guides pull him out of his body before he actually dies in the accident. So the guide doesn't want him to experience the pain, so his soul is pulled out. Well, at this point, before they realize the mix-up, because it's a new guide on the other side, it's a beginner guide, before they find the mix-up, the guide is actually, the body's cremated, so they have no body to put the soul back, and the soul's not supposed to be dead. So they have to hunt for another athlete that Warren Beatty's character can get into the body so that he can actually continue his life. So they actually have to find a physical vessel of a person who is an athlete in this particular instance, who is going to come in and actually have to cross out of their physical body, and they have to swap the souls in and out, which is a really interesting premise. I always love that movie because it's so interesting. Now, Warren Beatty's character has full recognition of who he is and, you know, why he can't get into his body. But at the end, when the deal is done, they erase the memory from him, so he becomes that athlete. So when that athlete is presumed dead and actually went dead, they took the other soul of him away and crossed over, and then Warren Beatty's character jumped in, and that life continued. So then the athlete got up. So there was a death period, a birth period. We call that a walk-in in metaphysics, and there's a lot of debate about it. I'm not even debating it. I'm just referencing the movie as a way of trying to explain what I feel happened to Jeffrey Epstein. I feel like he jumped the entity, the energy of him, which was extremely dark, and they kept telling me, we're not letting you go there. So there was no way I was going to be able to channel him, and he is not dead in the classical sense, as in the energy continues to live on. So that energy, like a cockroach in your house, isn't dying right now. It's going to continue on. It's in a different vessel. So that's the first thing I got with it. And I found it really interesting because it's not actually that I wanted to channel. It's not for me to do because I'm not in that energy field. If you actually get in the presence of complete dark evilness, you who is not like that will get physically sick. That's what I was being made to feel. So that right there and in and of itself means that if you're looking at a lot of mediums channeling his energy, I don't know how they're getting it because technically he's jumped ship, so to speak. So he just took off. Now, another interesting thing I get, because I asked, okay, let's open up the energy around the situation. Because again, I like to feel the energy. I don't necessarily have to know who did what. Now, his cellmate, the cop, the weightlifting cop, the big guy that's supposed to be in there for life for whatever, really interesting because they blamed him for the first assault on Jeffrey Epstein. Like they blamed him for that. That cop, the reason he was out of that cell to begin with, meaning after that first supposed suicide attempt, and they blamed it on the cop, but he wasn't actually charged with it, but they tried to blame it on him. The reason that guy asked to be moved out of Jeffrey Epstein's cell is because he started to see the metaphysical or the spiritual negativity around Jeffrey Epstein. They were showing me that. He got straight out spooked. He wasn't trying to kill the guy. He wasn't even trying to do anything with the guy. He got straight out spooked, okay? The word is spooked and wanted out. I want no parts of this is what I heard. He is being shown an actual lesson in what he's been doing in his own life through what happened with Jeffrey Epstein. So his negative actions in murdering people, etc., he's being shown through Jeffrey Epstein what potentially lies ahead for him is what I was hearing. Not the murder in jail. That's not what I mean. I mean the actual spiritual manifestation of evil energy and presence that was surrounding Jeffrey Epstein in that jail. And it was getting madder and angrier and more pissed off. Now, it was a combination of things that killed Jeffrey Epstein, obviously his own behavior to get in jail. And I'm not abdicating that, oh, the human being was outside of the body, therefore he's not responsible. To begin with, when you conjure up entities through any kind of black magic spell or white magic spell or spell, I don't know, whatever you want to call it, and you call up something to help you, you have now attached an entity to your body. Be very careful with the words that you speak and what you pull in, because it's nothing to play with. We are not taught that on earth, by the way. We are taught that if we go to our Catholic school, our Christian school, our Buddhist school, our Jewish temple, wherever it is we go, we will, we're only taught that one thing, except I will say in Catholicism, they do have the movie The Exorcist, so that does kind of let you know that even they believe something happens like that, and they should, because I won't even get into that. Anyway, they should, because it's run by a bunch of little exorcists running around inside of the priests' bodies and what they're doing. Anyhow, aside from that, but when we pray on this side, we're not really taught to consider the other imbalance to bring into balance what we are doing, which is the negative side of the positive side. There's always two sides. So a lot of people refuse to see the negative. They absolutely refuse. I'm saying to you, in Jeffrey Epstein's particular case, this was a big issue because his cellmate was like, get me the hell out of here. I don't even want to go there. I don't think his cellmate understood in any way whatsoever, in any way, what he had in the cell with him. Now, he was put into, this is what they're telling me, he was put into the cell to keep an eye on Jeffrey Epstein. He was an informant of sorts, or he was a person that would speak about his cellmate. That was the specific reasoning of putting him in there. And they picked him in particular because he talks so like cool, and he's sociopathic, if you will. And he could talk to another one. So it'd be like two of them talking. And so he could get the information out of Jeffrey Epstein and then relay it back. But right now, he wanted away from all of that. Get me away from it is what I'm seeing. So that energy was really interesting. Now, the other thing I got around it was on Jeffrey Epstein's island, we have Little St. James and there's Big St. James. But there's two parts to Little St. James. There's the I'm a creepy pervert pedophile part, and I want to pay for a 10-year-old over on this side. And then I'm part of the satanic cult of success and power. And I really went for it and I let them talk me into it side. So now I have to continue with what the cult says. It is a cult. It is a cult. It is a cult. And you are going to see so many people that you idolize from that cult be called out on it. It's starting to happen now. It really is starting to happen. It is incredible what's going to happen. Now, that what they did tell me is that Jeffrey Epstein was caught and arrested, not because it's the unveiling of everything else that's coming, but because they used Jeffrey Epstein and killing him, supposedly, and I'm sorry, suiciding him or him suiciding himself. They used that situation to distract from something else. And I believe it's a satanic cult. That's actually what I believe. But they also used it for people that aren't seeing or choose not to see or choose only to see the positive and not the reality of the situation. Don't make a judgment from here on in about what you see, just see. So when you look at a tree or a flower or a homeless tent or a politician or a drug dealer or a cop or a teacher or a woman or a man or a kid, don't make a judgment, observe. Stand back, detached, and watch. That's what we have to do so that we can start to understand what's going on energetically in this world. And with Jeffrey Epstein, he was the beginning, eye-opening in the spiritual war, throwing him out there to say, look, what you think, and what you align with, and the fake reality that you've been looking at your whole life probably, because it's been my whole life, although I could see it as a kid. Like that was my one talent, is I could see pedophiles a mile away and I could see bullshit from the other side a mile away. So I could see demonics playing tricks and I could see people that were hurting children. Like it was just innate with me. It always has been, and I can see it. I can actually look at a person and read it, which is really weird, but it's like this weird quirk. What we saw with Jeffrey Epstein is most of us cannot deny now that we have a government-run agency called a jail and a police department that somehow let a man either A, kill himself, or B, get murdered in a maximum security prison, which tells you that the world that we live in is not the way we think, that there really isn't protection, that people can be bought off, which was exactly Jeffrey Epstein's principle. There's money to buy somebody off. You can pay for anything. Everyone has a price, which may or may not be true, but that was his thinking. And obviously, with the fact that he's dead in the jail cell, everybody does have a price because somebody richer, somebody more powerful came in and said that prick needs to die. So he definitely was murdered. He was taken out, but the entity took off. Like, in other words, you're killing him, but let's say he takes on another vessel. What does that vessel look like? We don't know. It's basically like a horror movie, which is really weird, but it is. So Jeffrey Epstein's energy is very interesting. There's so much to do with the cult that's going to come out. And what I'm seeing right now is there's a lot of paperwork that's being like mixed up, like thrown over here, thrown over there. There's a lot of things going on. The royal family is going to have to acquiesce for what that Prince dummy did, because it's Prince Andrew, Prince whatever his name is. They're going to have to acquiesce because there's so many things that are going to come out about the royal family between now and the early part of April next year that it's not going to stop. So it's going to behoove them to actually throw him out as a, here, go fetch, go over there, so that they can distract away from themselves. Every power group that we align ourselves with is basically connected to this Jeffrey Epstein thing. Connected from that point is the fact that there are children, brown-skinned children being trafficked. Everybody emails me, what is brown-skinned children? So I was asking about the brown-skinned children. What the hell does that mean? Because I know what it means, like visually what it means, but I couldn't understand what it means in reference to Jeffrey Epstein and the power controllers of our world. So the people that run the IRS, the people that run companies like Apple and Amazon, the people that are dictators and prime ministers and presidents and monarchs of countries. I couldn't understand, what the hell does this mean? So I was shown behind the scenes on an energetic level, in a dimensional level, okay? So above what is tangible, above what we see, above what we can touch, above the texture of the earth, I was shown that these people are siphoning the energy from these third world countries, these brown-skinned babies, these brown-skinned people. They are siphoning the energy. So they are taking the energy, as in the life force of these people, through some sort of telepathic control that I really don't understand, and they are harvesting it. So the only thing I could think of was an example. So, you know, you go to work and you have a coworker and you're like, I first liked this person, but then this person wouldn't shut up and they drain my energy and they're like, blah, blah, blah. And then when they leave, I'm like, oh my God, I can hardly crawl to the chair to take a nap at my desk and I'm gonna get fired. Those people, those energy vampires, that's what's been going on in these third world countries. Their energy, creativity, and essence has been stolen. So they continue to steal it because now the structure of those people is weakened. That's what I heard. So they are utilizing the most vulnerable in our community on Earth, or in this place of Earth, this energy field of Earth. I call it a prison planet. I've heard that, so I'm stealing that word, but it is a prison planet. They have stolen the energy of these people. They have taken it and harvested it, just like the energy vampire coworker that you have at work that you're trying to run away from, but you have to work with them because they sit next to you and you're like, oh my God, I can't talk to this person anymore because they're gonna make me so tired. It's exactly like that. They have stolen the energy of these third world countries and these brown-skinned children. What are children? Children are full of life and energy and absolutely amazing, and they're vital and they're creative and they can think of things differently and they come at it in a different position. How about they're taking those kids metaphysically, spiritually, energetically, their essence of their soul, the energy field, the etheric body, and they are harvesting it somehow in another dimension, so on the astral level, and then they are taking the kids here because the kids' energies, once that happens, once you are shut down by an energy vampire, you don't really have the strength to fight it because you don't really know where it's coming from, and you might just go home and lie down. Well, these kids and these countries kind of soften, leaving them vulnerable to attack. And that's what was going on with Jeffrey Epstein. That's what these people are doing. The energy of these people has been stolen over centuries from these other, okay, call them elite bloodlines or bloodlines of people and DNA differently structured entities, call them aliens, call them assholes, I don't care, but that's what's happening. So I was shown this hierarchy that's going on. So these people in these countries need to get their power back. Jeffrey Epstein knew that, which means he's kind of a magician in a way, or can conjure up things on the other side. So don't think for 1 minute that he's actually, quote, technically dead. Nobody really is. What dies is the physical body, the carcass, the vessel is what dies. The soul usually goes on. In Jeffrey's case, it jumped into another vessel. And that is what I'm seeing. Can I prove it? I cannot prove it, but that is what I felt. I was also told he was a dark entity of like extreme. That's how he got in and lured everybody. That's what they do. I mean, if something dark is going to come to you, do you think the first time a drug dealer goes to give you like a shot of heroin, he's going to go, this is going to make you throw up every day for the rest of your life that you shoot it up. It's going to wreck everything in your body, fuck with your mind, shut down your organs. You'll probably overdose 3 or 4 times if you can ever get clean again, which is highly doubtful considering on how much we poisoned you with it. No, they tell you about the cool parties with the cool people and come to me this party. Just let me shoot you up. Just let me try. Then they get you hooked. They don't come in and tell you the nasty shit that happens. Same with your first drink. Same with all of this. That's the same way the dark energy works. When the dark energy falls to earth, it's going to give you what you want. What did Jeffrey Epstein do? He was a procurer of all underage, kind of perverted, satanic, cult-like, ritualistic, child abusing, adult abusing, blackmailing, adult murder, kid murder, trafficking all over the world, controlling of the dollar, controlling of the governments, information stealing bastard on the earth. Now, how did he get his start? Well, here's what I'm going to say. The guy that runs Victoria's Secrets, I believe his last name is Wexner or Wexler, whatever it is, and I don't care. It's Leslie or Les. That guy and Jeffrey, 2 sociopaths hooked up. That guy is the money behind Jeffrey Epstein. That guy gave Jeffrey the money and the reign with which to use his charm and his street con, but let's look at it as an energetic con, okay? It's not straight up street, but it is street, and it's energetic, and he used it in order to do a power play. So the two worked in tandem together, and in my opinion, may have been some kind of sick, sadistic lovers, because that's what I pick up. That's kind of what I saw. That's what I'm saying. And that's the essence and the first energies I picked up around Jeffrey Epstein. I can tell you that I don't feel it was suicide. I do see something coming from behind him like this, but it's a cracking down here. It's not a noose. It's actually a cracking. It's coming from behind. The hand is behind and it's cracking. And it was not his cellmate. His cellmate is terrified of what he's seen. And what flashes in my head when I'm talking about the cellmate is if you ever watched the movie Ghost with Whoopi Goldberg and Patrick Swayze, and yes, I'm going to do a video on Patrick Swayze. I love that movie. It was so on point to how the psychic mediums see the world and like shit that we see that you can't say. And it was sold as a comedy actually, which I find hilarious because it was actually extremely authentic in its portrayal. So whoever they referenced or whoever the medium was that was speaking to the writers was on point. But there's a point where the henchmen for the banking, whoever killed Patrick Swayze, I can't remember the whole story, but the people that worked with him and were protecting his files, when they see the dark entities come up, the fallen nasty entities, the guy is like running, trying to run screaming, this big tough bully guy that's like, you know, killing people, murdering people. He's a hired gun. He's screaming like a baby running away from the dark energy. That's what Jeffrey Epstein's cellmates do. I literally got that flash. So I know that he saw the spiritual side. Remember, we are in a spiritual turning around. So the reverse world is flipping back to the balanced world. It's been reversed. It's upside down. We've been living in the upside down world. This is changing now, and that is what's going on. So that is my first video on Jeffrey Epstein, although not channeling him because that is icky. I'm going around it, and I was told not to go there, so I'm not going there. But I'm trying to give you the layout of what I'm picking up. And once again, my name is Sloan from SloanBella.com.